Hey, free timers. This is the episode where it all comes together. We're walking through the Time Freedom Calculator, the tool that helps you see your financial future more clearly. You'll meet Annika and Nick, a fictional couple using it to plan their next chapter and test what happens when real life meets real numbers. It's part planner, it's part crystal ball, and it's exactly what you need to step into time freedom with confidence. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Time Freedom Podcast, where you can learn how to rethink your work and your money to create a life you love right now. Join us for insights to help you find meaningful freedom so you can choose how and when and with whom you work for as long as you want. Here are your hosts, me, Brian Herriot, and Kirby Denison. Hello and welcome to the Time Freedom Podcast. This is episode number 18 of a 20-episode season, so we're getting near the end. I can't believe it, actually. But this, we're going to have some fun. Today, we're going to talk, this is kind of a capstone episode, which means I will refer to things from other episodes. So if you're just coming into our podcast now, this might be a tough one to start with unless you go back and listen all the way through. But there's only 17 prior episodes, and they're very quick, so I definitely urge you to do that. Today's episode is on the Time Freedom Calculator, the pinnacle, the way in which you gain the financial confidence to live with meaningful freedom as a free timer. But before we get into all that, let's hear what's been going on in our lives. So I don't know, Kirby, do you have anything that you want to share with all of the thousands of millions of listeners that we have?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I literally just landed in California. So again, we're in the same state and
Nice.
Unfortunately not the same town. One day it will be the same town. But yeah, we just literally landed. I pulled out my mic and my computer and here we are.
That's awesome. So the update I have is that earlier this week, I got back from Simplified Page 2, the interior design of the book. And it's when they take what you give them in a Word document and combined with some like hokey figures that you've created using PowerPoint, and they put it all together and lay it out into it. It's not the full book, but it's about, I think there were about 15, 20 pages in there that allows them to show you what the start of a chapter looks like, what this heading looks like, what the figures look like, what the tables look like. And it is cool. It is so cool. I sent it to AJ Harper, my authorship mentor. She loved it. I sent it to Mike Michalowicz. He said, my first reaction was, this is accessible and professional. And best of all, I showed it to Claire last night, and she's like, this is high quality.
Yes.
Without any suggested changes or anything, it already looks so great. So I'm really, really excited to share that with everybody.
Yeah. And it just makes it another milestone that makes it so real. And another accomplishment that you should be so proud of. Like, you've made it this far in the journey, and most people don't even finish writing the book, let alone get to this point. And
I totally agree. This one is the one that made it feel the most real. I think, you know, like the cover, getting the cover was big, and that was pretty cool too, because I love the cover. But this makes it look like, oh man, I'm like a real author here. It's kind of cool. Anyway, I'm going to be able to tell people about it because this weekend also I'm getting on a plane on Saturday morning to fly to Boston to see some author friends, speaker friends out in Boston at a conference called Book Thinkers. It's about book marketing. And so on, the conference is set for Sunday, and there's 200 folks there, including really good, high quality authors like Stephen Pressfield and some other like really incredible draws. Again, like as a book marketing strategy, if you're writing a book, you want to befriend other authors and promote them, and they'll promote you. And it's just this, the authorship and books are a unique product in that if somebody buys one, they're more likely to buy another one in the same space. It's not as if somebody else has a book close to time freedom, they buy theirs, they won't buy mine. No, it's the opposite, which is so different from most types of business and products and services and things like that. So anyway, I'm really excited to go out there. I'm also going to have a chance to see AJ, who I mentioned just earlier. Very a lot of fun stuff happening.
Is there anyone else in the workshop from AJ's or Simplified that you know that are going?
I do. There are more than the authorship workshop. The people that I know are going, there's I think about 7-8 people from the Heroic Public Speaking program that I was part of that are going to be there. So we're all going to have dinner on Saturday night, and then there's a welcome dinner or a welcome party after that. And then the next day, Yeah, is the conference. So what I'm missing is that they're all doing this thing. It's not called the Mud Runner, but it's some other sort of like equivalent type of race that they have that's super extreme. I'm going to miss it.
Darn.
I'm going to be on a flight. I guess I can't do it. My ankles won't support my efforts.
Yeah, there you go. That's a great excuse to be flying.
Yeah. So anyway, let's quickly introduce ourselves. So Kirby is my wonderful co-host. She is the founder and owner and president of Kirby and Co. That provides a variety of services, including coaching and fractional COO services and virtual assistant services. And kind of represents in our presenting duo here someone who's newer in the entrepreneurial space and perhaps, reflecting a lot of and having some of the same perspectives and questions that a lot of our listeners have. So I just really value your ability to bring that perspective to the podcast. I think it makes the podcast 100 times better.
Well, thank you, Brian. And obviously I'm here with Brian, and he is our time freedom expert. And today you already mentioned that we are going to talk about the time freedom calculator, which has been really fun for me to see being in that new space from really the development of the calculator from your very first vision all the way to now, and just the things that we can do. I can share some as we go through my personal experience with it. And yeah, I'm just excited to jump in.
All right. So what I'll share, a couple of things off the bat. So anybody can use this. It's totally free. Mm-hmm. And so I'll give you the address right up at the front in case you have to drop off the episode. I still want you to go check out the calculator. It's timefreedomcalculator.com. Pretty easy to remember. And there's an entire chapter in my book devoted to this calculator, and it's chapter 12. So it's near the end. Kind of after you understand the concepts of time freedom, we talk about the individual components of it around, lifestyle expenses, investment income, flexible work, and building the time freedom formula. The thing is, the reason we need the time freedom calculator and the reason that it comes at the end is so far we've talked about with the time freedom formula, you look at 1 year in your life and you figure out how you can flexibly balance your work and your investment income to cover your expenses. And the time freedom formula is great for looking at it from a 1 year perspective. The problem is our lives are not just 1 year. And, it's a good exercise to represent the typical year in this new flexible lifestyle that you want to live. However, we have things in the future. We have a college tuition to pay for. We have pension or Social Security that we're going to get in the future. There are these things that we have to pay for in the future, or there are these things that we will get from, as far as income goes in the future. And those are worth different because of inflation. And we need to figure out how to package kind of all of the future years up and project our time freedom formula out into the future and accommodate all of these things and then roll it back and say, hey, am I going to run out of money? That's really the question. So the purpose of this time freedom calculator is to say, all right, I'm this old. In 3 years, I want to live more flexibly. Can I plug some numbers in the calculator, the right number of numbers, not too many, not too few, and press, you don't even have to press submit. It automatically calculates and shows you on the graph, and it'll show you if you go pew, boom, and you run out of money by the time you're 60 or you run out by your 80. And then you keep adjusting the inputs. And then eventually you get a point where you make it right until you're 100 or whatever, or you make it and you are worth 10 million at 100 years old. There's a lot of flexibility built in there, but it allows you to have the financial confidence looking forward in your life to say, okay, in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, I can start living this way. And I don't have the worry of what about the money thing. That's why I'm so proud of the book, because of the way that it brings financial and time together. I'm not just teaching you about the philosophy of living with time and flexibility, but I'm showing you that if you work the money piece of it, you can have the confidence to actually do it, which is something that I think is a little bit different than what exists out there right now, and why I'm so glad to bring the book into the world.
Yeah, and I think it's very, for sure, I was a lender for 7 years, and even coming from that side, it's just not talked about of like looking past, if you meet with your normal financial advisors, they kind of go through and ask your lifestyle questions and things like that. And then they do everything on the back end. And unless you're more like a financial advisor and ask those questions, you don't really know. And so what I loved and appreciated about the calculator is it's easy to use. You don't need very many numbers, and it shows you, I'm such a visual person, it shows you right there on the graph like you said, in two things that, it is doable, and it gives you, I don't know, another found hope for me. Like, as we talked before, I have small kids, and so I have 3 colleges to pay for. We are gonna build a house. We have that expense, and what that looks like and where we need to be financially and realistically. Like, maybe it's not 3 years, but it's 5 years or 7 years, and that's still doable. We know 7 years is really not that long. So it was so easy, and just it brought it full circle, I guess, for me.
I love the fact that you appreciate that you can kind of see yourself and have access to it, because yes, a lot of financial advisors will run. I think it's financial advising industry is moving in the right direction to kind of show the why behind the number crunching, but it's still not there yet. And so you have the ability to do it yourself and see, or, you can hire me to do it and I'll walk you through it. That's another option too. It's not too simplistic, right? The 4% rule is a very simplistic rule. I'm worth $1 million and I can live off of $40,000 a year. Great, but that doesn't really help me understand my personal life, right? And then there are these other highly complex, complicated software systems that, exist, and they're good, but not many people are going to use those because it is just too complex. So you find the right middle ground, and that's what the time freedom formula is. And why am I okay with it in the middle? No matter what number you put in there, it's not going to be right.
Right.
Because we can't predict the future. So you do the best you can. You chart it out. You save it. You come back to it on your next birthday or at the turn of the next year, and you create a copy, adjust your numbers, project it out, see how it goes. And you can keep kind of changing it as you move through life to see how you're progressing towards your time freedom goals.
Yeah, and I think it's really easy to project to, if you're thinking about, because you can make the copy of it, and you can go in and play with different scenarios based on, what I want today is definitely probably not what I want in 15 years. Like, maybe I want rental real estate or something like that. So
Exactly.
You can play with that, and that's really cool to have that flexibility around it. So how does it compare to like a normal retirement calculator?
Yeah, the big so there's different ways to think about it, because it's always best to explain something to somebody with reference to what they might know. And so many people, especially if you are mid-career and you're like, gosh, when can I retire? You might have played around with a retirement calculator online. And this is kind of like that, with two big exceptions. One is you're not solving for your retirement date. You're solving for what I call your free age. Like, when is that age when you can start doing it? And because that's usually a lot earlier and you're still going to be working after it, this calculator allows you to include this flexible work and this income after that free age. Whereas a lot of the retirement calculators are like, okay, I'm going to retire at 65 and then that's it. It's just you're living off your money. So there's no reason to put any work or any other sort of like flexible income after that. That's a big differentiator. I was just thinking about, as I was kind of preparing this episode, the writing process for this chapter of the book. Writing about a technical resource is challenging. And I'll tell you, I wrote the first draft and it was basically almost like a little how-to manual. How do you use this thing? And then you read the book and it's got these fun stories and these cool frameworks. And then you hit chapter 12 and you're like, it's like, oh, now I'm reading a technical manual. And then I try to bring you back in chapter 13 and talk more about, water skiing and all this kind of fun stuff. And it just didn't work. And this chapter, I literally wrote twice. I completely rewrote it and then, made another 10 rounds of edits on it. But it was completely shifted into more of a story about, it's a fictional couple, but it's kind of loosely based on my friend Vina and her husband Jesh. They live in Berkeley. And I kind of had them in the book at one point, but then the editor made me take them out. And they've been so helpful with me with the book. I'm like, I got to somehow work them back into the book. So I created this fictional couple that's loosely my loose case study in the book. They have a kid and my friends don't have a kid. So it's not completely their lives, but it's slightly based on their lives. But what the chapter turned into, and what I think we could talk through here, is let's describe someone's life scenario and go, okay, well, this is how you could, use this book to get to this point. And then these are the types of questions you still have. This is then how you'd use the calculator, instead of going, well, first you click on this field and then you look for that chart and things like that. That stuff is still important. And if you go to timefreedomcalculator.com, there's a little question mark with a circle button in the upper right-hand corner. And if you click on that, you'll go to the help documentation for the calculator. Now, depending upon when you listen to this episode, there will be more or less help documentation. But we do have 2 videos out there that like the overview videos. And those are the probably, that'll get you 80% of the way there. How do you use this calculator on a laptop/computer? And how do you use this calculator on a mobile phone? Because you can. It's been designed for use on mobile as well. But another thing that I'm going to be developing is a series of videos that walk through different scenarios for different types of lifestyles. And actually, I wrote them down, some of them down to give you an example. But like, let's say you want to be, the example that I always have is, because it applies to most people, is like, now that I've learned about this lifestyle, what if I want to do this starting in 3 years? What does that kind of look like? There's ones that there'll be examples of cases for someone that wants to be free in 10 years. Could be just a traditional retirement case. There could be the case where, you have a spouse and one does want to be live more freely and one wants to keep working, or one that's more focused on the manager the manager personality. So it's mostly focused on investments, and another that's mostly focused on the maker lifestyle or maker personality that's more focused on, entrepreneurship and lifestyle business. So my point here is that no matter which part of the time freedom formula you need and works best for you, there's a way to use the calculator that will make it fit and make sure that you can live the lifestyle of time freedom.
Yeah. And I love that it's able to cover so many, because it's not just, each of us, even if we are even entrepreneurs, each situation is so different. And so just being able to have that personalized way more than some of the other traditional ones out there is also a huge benefit.
So let me just kind of walk through this scenario. Let's call it a scenario based on Bina, and kind of use it to describe, like, I'm just trying to think of this from the listener's perspective, right? I want to read the scenario, and then you're going to be like, oh yeah, okay, this is like me, or this is my scenario. These are the types of things that I would want to think about as I approach this calculator. So that's what I was hoping to do here. And as part of it, what realized as I wrote this chapter of the book is it's kind of a summary of all the things that have been learned up until that point, because money personalities comes up, time freedom formula comes up, look back, look ahead lifestyle design comes up. Like all of the tools and techniques and frameworks that we've talked about so far come up. And so let me touch on those and then stop me at any point and we can kind of talk about some of these. But if you're looking for a technical description on how to use the calculator, go out to it and use the help documentation. So here's the scenario, and I'm just going to read this first part. Annika and Nick, both 42 years old, have been married for 10 years and have one child, Maya. They moved to Bellingham, Washington in 2019 and love it. Now, Annika works in corporate. She's a corporate sustainability director, and her husband, Nick, is a project manager at a local nonprofit. Their daughter, Maya, she's in the 8th grade and getting ready for high school. So you can already see, all right, this is a middle-aged, I don't think that's appropriate, middle career couple, young kid, thinking about college. They both work, in more traditional careers so far. So here's what I say next in the book. 2 weeks ago, the couple completed their look back, look ahead lifestyle design exercise. So this, you can kind of see that we are driving towards, let's figure out what that ideal life is, and then let's figure out how to financially and with our time, make that work. Now, this first section that I'm going to talk about is creating the life they love now. All right. It's one of the 3 parts of the subtitle of my book. Okay. This is what they came up with in their look back, look ahead lifestyle design. They have shared visions. Their shared vision centers on the outdoors, natural world, protecting it for their daughter and hopefully future grandchildren. All right. They want to build more friendships with others who share that same vision. They want to spend a lot more time not working, but like enjoying all the wonderful mountains and stuff in the Pacific Northwest. They want to be the type of parents that have the ability to spend like 3 months near where their daughter's going to school, if she'll have them. That's another thing that they want to do. And then professionally, remember the things that you're supposed to think about when you do the look back, look ahead lifestyle design, who you spend your time with, where you are, what you do,
what you're doing
professionally, and how you take care of yourself, right? So we're kind of touching on all those things. So professionally, they love this message of sustainability, and they've been able to get it kind of in their jobs, but they want to go bigger on that. They want to, share inspirational messages about this stuff and like impact more people and more things. And they think they can do that if they start their own thing. Now, what the key thing is, they've been working with a financial advisor, and they're like, well, what you might want to do is just keep doing what you're doing for now wait until your daughter gets through school, and then you can maybe make a change. I hear this all the time. I thought the same thing. Like, so I'm just going to do the same thing until my kid gets through college. Well, guess what? What if you didn't have to do that? Right? That's the kind of question that this couple is posing as they approach the time freedom calculator. Could they do something a little bit more different? Yeah. So again, like, how does this all start? Chapter 6 in the book, or the episode, on planning your ideal life. You have to think about, like, what is that life you love? Mm-hmm. And maybe it's not now, but how could you work towards that in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? And that's really where it all begins.
Yeah. And I think that what's beautiful about them doing it together too, is they're not just thinking about themselves, but they're also thinking about their family dynamics and what that looks like. And I think also, to piggyback off of what their question would be of just wait until their kids get out of school, then it's like, okay, well, you've done it that long, then you stick with it, which is the trap.
When do you really end?
Yeah. And so I like where they're going, and then I know they're going to make changes.
So another thing, so what they've decided is that they've got some things going for them, because they realized through reading this book that Nick is more of a money manager. And so he just by sheer luck, kind of like myself, grew up in a family where his parents were like, make sure you start saving right away when you get your first job. And lo and behold, he did. And together now, they're at 42, they've already saved $500,000. Most of it's in retirement, but this is something that they have going for them. And then Annika, on the other hand, she is the moneymaker type. So she's always been the one to have kind of these side hustles. They burned her out, but she's learned a lot of stuff. So she knows about how to set up QuickBooks for a side business, and how to sell some things, right? And so what they want to do is figure out if they could kind of use his benefit, or what it kind of comes down to is, we talk about it. You need to be good at least one part of the time freedom formula to make this work. But they have this unique advantage as a couple in that they have two areas that they can really focus on. The investments part with the money manager, and the flexible work and the entrepreneurial things with Annika's money maker money personality. So what they did is now we're going to talk about rethinking your money. Okay, so we need to align the money part as part of preparing to use the calculator. And so they did the no budget, and they dropped their budget by $10,000, right? They took a look at their investments and realized that they had been invested in some high cost mutual funds that they didn't even pay attention to. So they decided to switch those over to low cost Vanguard funds, right? They made some good, smart choices there. And they actually kind of adjusted their cash position a little bit. Remember the time freedom portfolio? And because they increased their cash position by about 10%, because they knew that they were going to be wanting to start this business in the next 3 years. So they made those changes as kind of part of planning for how they're going to see if this will work for them long term once they plug all the numbers into the time freedom calculator. And then they've thought about how they're going to rethink their work, because that's also kind of the linchpin of the whole thing. So now we've got the whole subtitle of the book, Rethink Your Work and Your Money so that you can create a life you love now. So what are they going to do for work? So here's their idea. They want to transition into this new lifestyle business in, say, 3 years. So they're going to follow the no hustle transition framework. So in year 1, they're going to get everything in order, their skills, their network, the service they're going to provide. In year 2, she's going to step out. He's going to stay in his job. She's going to step out and try to figure it out, but plan not to make any money. And then in the 3rd year, they're going to try to make the amount of money that they need so that their time freedom formula works out. And then ideally, they want to, grow it a little bit bigger, not have to work so much. Maybe eventually Nick can come out and they can kind of work together on this whole thing. So this is their thinking. And as a listener who's thinking, I want to live a life of time freedom, like, where do I start? The money, the work, whatever. You got to start with how you want to live. And then you start to think through, okay, what changes do I need to make to my money? What changes do I need to make to my work? And use the frameworks aligned in the book to get to that point. And so that's where we kind of leave it at this point. And then we're like, all right, well, now let's figure out calculations and things like that.
So what do we need to figure out for the calculations? Like what numbers do we need before we head to the calculator?
Yeah. And I'm just going to do this kind of high level. And because as I was, again, looking back to prepare, we didn't have an episode on one of the chapters of the book, which is to get ready and to pull your numbers, because boy, would that be a boring podcast episode, like really boring. So they have the 3 numbers that they know they already need because they've done the time freedom formula. And that is, what do they live on each year, or what would they live on each year in this new lifestyle? And I'm not going to get into the numbers, I'm realizing. How much do they need to live on? And then they've got their $500,000 at 4%. That's $2 a year is their investment income. And they are thinking they don't want to work as hard. They don't want to feel the need to make as much. How about that in their lifestyle business? So they're shooting for like 100,000 or 120,000 or something like that. You know what? Let me give the numbers. They pulled their lifestyle expenses and it was about 120,000. So their time freedom formula is almost kind of clear for them. 120,000 of lifestyle expenses equals 20,000 of investment income plus 100,000 of flexible work. Perfect. Wonderful look at 1 year. But they have a daughter that needs to go to school. They have these other things, like they're going to get a pension from one of their previous jobs. They might sell their house and rent, like a lot of these kind of future things. And so those are the other numbers that they have to gather. There's a set of 6 of them ultimately. They're called the Goldilocks numbers because it's just the right amount. And these are numbers that, again, you are clearly articulated in my book in chapter 3 about what you need to pull. And then you use some of them for the time freedom formula, and then you use all of them for the time freedom calculator. So what they kind of have at their ready. Now, let me just get into kind of briefly how they're going to use this calculator without, going crazy and doing an instruction manual here. The simple way that it works is you have to put just 5 numbers in to start it. How old are you? When do you want to be free? So in this case, they're 42. They want to be free at 45. And when do you want to plan to? Or in other words, how long do you want your money to last? Age 100, just to be safe. And then there's fields to put these numbers in. And you put your expenses in of 120,000. You put your $500,000 of money that you already have invested. And the moment you hit those first 5 numbers, boom, the calculator is going to spit out a graph for you. And now, initially, it's going to be red. And you're going to be like, oh no, but you haven't finished putting your numbers in. So you got to scroll back down and finish putting your numbers in. So there's numbers that fall into the lifestyle expenses kind of column, investment income column, and flexible work column. Just think of it in terms of like the time freedom formula. And as you update those numbers, if you look back up, you're going to see on your chart, it's going to start flipping from red to green. And then you're going to be like, okay, you can see the money lasts you all the way till you're 100. And then you save it and you've got a baseline strategy. Then actually is the fun part. You can be like, well, what if I am free a year earlier? Or what if I can make a little bit more on my money? Or what if, I have to pay for 5 years of college instead of 4 years of college? Like there's all these different scenarios that you can run. And you do that by copying your baseline scenario and then making adjustments to it. So it's very, very easy to do and to play around with. And then ultimately, once you get to a baseline scenario, then you have your plan, and the plan is not the calculator. The plan is all the stuff that we did and talked about up until that point. How are you changing your work? How are you changing your money? All of those sorts of things. The calculator is just how it comes together at the end and you're like, stamp of approval. Like financially, this will work. And so, I'm good. I don't have to worry about the money part of it. Let's just focus on all that stuff. And I have my plan. And that gets us, that's where we are at this point in the series of the podcast, at this point in the book. And we'll talk about what's coming next week, but that's kind of, that's where we get at this point.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to go back and listen to chapter 3, where they can find exactly where to find those numbers, please join us at timefreedom.life and join our insiders. You can listen to Brian read all of the, almost said episodes, read all of the chapters there and also some other information that will be dropped in there as well. And definitely highly, highly recommend that. I mean, I think that was one of the very first things that Brian and I worked on together for my personal side is the time freedom calculator. And it was so eye-opening. And also was just another reassurance of that confidence building that you're not behind, you're exactly where you need to be, and you can make small tweaks to get you where you want to be. And even whether you have debt or anything going into it, I think we talked about on a previous episode, student loan debt or anything else like that too, you have a plan on how to get through it. And it's easy to see on the graph. There's also a table option for those that are not as visual. But for me to see the graph, I was like, okay, I'm relieved. I'm not failing at life.
And I love that you mentioned the student debt, the different debt, because the question that a listener would, where do I put that in the calculator? All of that stuff will be detailed, but you would put it, if you care, in the lifestyle expenses section. You would create an additional expense that runs for a certain number of years until it's been paid off, and then it disappears. So there's ways to kind of account for all of these different types of expenses and types of income and market crashes and all these sorts of things. You can reflect them in the calculator, and that's how you then know that you can be comfortable and confident, because you've kind of pressure tested all of these different scenarios. But thank you for sharing that, Kirby, because it's the best part of the job when you kind of settle on a calculator and the person across from me goes, wow, that's awesome, or like, I feel so good now, because people know what their net worth is. They know what their house is worth. They know what their loans are, and they're like, oh, my net worth is 500,000. But like if you say, like, how's that going to work for you? Is that okay? Is that going to last for your life? Based on what you want to do in life, are you going to be okay? People can't say yes, usually. I couldn't until I figured this out. And I always wanted to be able to answer that question. Now you can project, and things change and all that sort of stuff. But it sure is better to have some information than no information in terms of if you can make it,
Well, and I remember doing the simple John Hancock. That was the very first 401k I had, was through John Hancock. And they had you fill out a small quiz of how you wanted to live and what age you thought you would want to retire, and some very basic things, but it didn't account for all of your true lifestyle things. And so, I mean, I would say, like, oh, you need $2 million, for example. It's like, okay, but is that really going to last? Like, so many things change. Like, by the time I retire, is $2 million really enough? Probably not.
All you can say is it can pull $80,000 every year and it won't run out of money. Which is helpful, but you can go another level.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Well, it looks like we're near the end on time, but what I wanted to kind of to close this out is that, at this point we have a plan. Now we have a plan. And what we're going to talk about in the next episode is actually a chapter that had to be cut from the book because it was too long. And so you're going to be able to hear something that's not even out there, unless you, again, become an insider and, pre-order my book, where I send out the cut material as well. But what we're going to talk about next week is taking action, which is obviously very, very, very important. You can come up with a plan and you can be comfortable, but then you actually have to make it happen. And it was a very difficult decision to have to pull that from the book. And so that's why I want to talk about it next week when we get together.
Yeah,
so I think that kind of wraps it up from my perspective. How about you, Kirby?
Yeah, I think that actually, if you follow me on Instagram, you would see I'm going to share the next 10 days how intense trainers is.
Yes.
And that was exactly what I talked about today. Is the very first thing is, before you have momentum, you have to make a step. And so taking action fits in perfectly.
So please visit us at timefreedom.life and become an insider. Like and subscribe to the podcast. And this week, I just started a TikTok account and an Instagram account. So you can actually find us there the very early, if you're listening to this early, when we're very, very young. But I don't even know what they're called. Our call handles, our whatever you call that is
your handle.
Your handle, not your call sign. I was thinking military, is Time Freedom Life. Time Freedom Life, one word. And that's on TikTok and Instagram.
Yes.
All right, there we go.
All right.
Crazy. I never thought I'd be a social person. I mean, in that regard, but I guess I am now. So. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, we'll see you next week.